Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Get ready to be inspired, hear success stories, and learn tips and principles for bringing out the best in everyone.
Hello, everyone. This is Debra Rue. I'm the CEO of Rue Global Impact, and you are watching or listening to Human Potential at Work. So I'm joining from a gorgeous day here in Virginia, sheltering at home, staying safe in this ridiculous world that we live in today. And my guest today is Lily Bond, and Lily is the Senior Director of Marketing expertise in closed caption and video accessibility with 3Play Media. And before I turn it over to Lily, I just want to say 3Play Media caught my attention years ago because they are wonderful when it comes to captioning and accessibility and things like that, but they also do a wonderful job with training and webinars and content, and they just really they do I they always we try to give so much more than just selling services ourselves at Root Global Impact. But 3Play Media does too, and they do a wonderful, wonderful job. So if you don't know about 3Play Media, or you knew about them, but then you forgot about them, I'm looking forward to letting Lily tell us a whole lot more and having an interesting conversation with her. So Lily, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, and Lily, tell us about first of all, tell us a little bit more about Lily, and then tell us about more about 3Play Media, because once again, I noticed you years ago because I would go out to Slide Deck or SlideShare, and y'all would always be posting these incredible presentations out there and doing webinars and training, and you give back so much to the community, and I just applaud that.
Well, thank you so much. It's a huge compliment coming from you. I've been with 3Play for about 6.5 years, kind of started as the content marketing manager, building out our content strategy and our webinar strategy, and really putting a lot of time into our thought leadership in the space and how we can bring in experts in the space of digital accessibility and really become an educator, because it's such a there's so few great resources out there, and it's such a niche space, particularly when you hone in on video accessibility specifically, that we just wanted to put resources out there so that people could learn, and that we could let the people who are experts in the space kind of have a voice there. So I've been with 3Play. I run our marketing department and our kind of brand strategy. And 3Play has been around for just over 10 years, really focused on video accessibility at scale and technical innovation in the space. And we're kind of continuing to do that, and really, really exciting time for video right now.
I agree. We've been nagging, we've been begging, we've been, building awareness. And when we all went home to get away from COVID-19, I think it became very, very clear what we were talking about and why we needed things to be accessible. And now we're doing everything over Zooms and the you know, Google Chats, and you can do it over Skype. I mean, there's so many platforms you can use, and not all of them are really accessible. And captioning continues to be a major problem. And I know we've had a lot of conversations. I had the pleasure to have some really powerful conversations with Josh, who is the CEO of the company. And I want to remind people, even though I think a lot of the listeners, they totally are on, they totally get why captioning is so important. But years ago, well, not that long ago, but a few years ago, both Verizon and Facebook did a study, and they said 80 to 85% of videos were being watched with sound turned off. And so if you weren't captioning those videos, by the way, we weren't not really understanding what your content was. And so, but it's really even bigger than that now, because as you know, it's video accessibility. And I often would hear people say, oh, all you have to do is put on this little overlay tool and your website's fully accessible. And I would say, oh, that's great. So how does this tool make your videos accessible? Well, what do you mean? Well, how does it make them captioned? Oh, well, no, it doesn't do that. Oh, so in other words, your website isn't accessible, because if your video and your audio is not accessible, then your website's not accessible. So I'm sure you have a few comments on that.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point because there are so many kind of automated testing tools that people use, but they don't check video. So they don't touch video at all. So you can get a perfect score on an automated test and not have captions, not have audio description, and you are still really liable under those conditions. So that's something we hear a lot too. But just kind of beyond that, like I loved what you were saying about all of the other benefits and the number of people that watch video without sound. I don't know if anyone else is like this, but I take when we're in the office, I take the subway to work every day, and I don't wear headphones on the train, so I'm constantly scrolling through my news feed, and videos autoplay without sound now. And if there are no captions, then I just scroll right past it. And yeah, Facebook and Verizon have done really interesting studies showing just the sheer number of videos that are just incomprehensible without captions if they're played without sound. So it's definitely an emerging trend, and I could talk for years about that.
Well, and also the thing that I know that has frustrated both of us and many others, people seem to think this is a nice to have and maybe something you're doing for someone that's deaf, which, by the way, why wouldn't you do it for someone that's deaf? And, people with hearing differences, but it is not a nice to have. I know that, and I used to say this in training and stuff, and I'm a smart aleck, but I remember that my daughter with Down syndrome, we used to always turn the captions on for her because she actually would practice her reading and her comprehension skills by following that. And then I noticed my husband started a few years ago. He kept saying, let's turn the captions on, let's turn the captions on. And he was struggling with comprehension, and it turned out he had a very, very serious hearing loss. His father is genetic. His father was totally deaf when he passed, and my husband has very severe hearing loss. And so we found that captioning was very powerful, but I also used it myself because I'm ADHD and it sort of helps me comprehend. And at the same time, I would use it for programs that I used to love. I haven't watched it in a while, but the Swamp People. And it was so funny. And even though they're fellow Americans, I did not always understand in English, even though they were speaking in English, just because their accent was so different from the hearing. So there's so many there's so many really reasons things to be captioned, but people always seem to consider it is afterthought. So I was wondering if you could explore that with us.
Yeah, I would love to. You brought up so many great points there that I completely agree with. I mean, the very first thing is that captioning is just a critical accommodation for the deaf and hard of hearing population, and no one should ever be saying it's a nice to have if you have an audience that includes the deaf and hard of hearing population, or you get accommodation requests. But beyond that, it's really beneficial for learning for all people because so I mean, you mentioned Down syndrome and ADHD. There are so many other disabilities that benefit from captioning. We've seen we did a research study with the Oregon State University, their eCampus research unit, and they studied the impact of captioning on student learning and comprehension. And what we found was that there were a huge number of students with cognitive disabilities that benefited from captioning. We were hearing students saying it helps them pay attention. It helps them, if they're dyslexic, know how to better spell and learn the right terms. It helps with comprehension and understanding if their professor has an accent or they're talking about a complicated topic. And then, there's a huge percentage of the population that are visual learners, and to be able to read the text of what's being spoken is just extremely beneficial to so many people. And I think we're seeing that right now with so many people moving remote. It's more people are really starting to wake up to the fact that captioning is kind of a universal design principle,
Right.
and that it's critical for getting better engagement and attention and learning out of people.
Yeah, I agree. And I also find that Um, I, in the first place, 1 in 20 Americans have hearing loss. And many people have hearing loss and they don't know they have hearing loss. Like my husband walked around for years with severe hearing loss. And it was interesting when they were showing us what was lost. A woman's voice was one of the things that he lost. And so I thought for sure he was just tuning me out, which I talk all the time, but so it's for, people that are aging, which is, they're, according to the internet, a 1 in 20 people have hearing loss. And I think those numbers are actually much larger, but that's okay. And, but also as we age, we lose our hearing, we lose our vision, we don't walk as well. Nothing wrong with aging. It's, we got it, but all of these things help us be, continue to be included, but at the same time, sometimes we're multitasking or we're just distracted by something. And if you have those captionings, that also really helps make sure that I have the information, not to mention if you keep the captioning, that it allows anybody that wasn't able to participate in, say, the Zoom meeting or something else, it allows them to better understand what was done. I mean, it's so essential. What in the world, or why is everything not captioned?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that's, our mission as a company has been to make sure that every video is accessible. But it really comes down to I think it's people don't have this awareness, or they don't think that it's going to impact their business, or they don't want to have the budget for it. But when we hear that, we have to look at the budget of the company as a whole, and why they can't kind of put in the minimal percentage necessary to make their videos accessible. And that's, I mean, I don't like using fear tactics, but that's certainly kind of like what the Office of Civil Rights says to higher ed when they say they don't have the budget for it.
Yeah, yeah. And I the other day was talking to a corporation that I obviously am not going to name, and they were saying to me, okay, so when you say compliance, tell me about that. Do you mean what part of the compliance do we really have to pay attention to? And I was like, what? What? Well, it's the law, and you have to pay attention to the entire law to be compliant. And they're like, yeah, but some must be nice to have. And I said, nope, nope. The law says if you have a video on your website, or you are playing videos for your employees, or their videos in the workforce, they must be captioned. That's what the law says. And by the way, the law said that for a really long time. But why do we have to have a law to say that? Why would you leave anyone out? Why, when your CEO does a speech, do you not want that speech captioned? I don't even understand it. And when they throw the budget and the money, also, I just have no sympathy for them, because to me, this is an essential part. This is an essential. And it's interesting as we're walking this COVID-19 and this pandemic. It's interesting watching the corporations that are sort of cutting back and the ones that are actually moving forward, because that says a lot to us about who you are, how seriously you were taking true inclusion. Because if you're not captioning, you don't really care about our community and about people really, truly having access to your information. That's what it says very clearly to me. And I know captions can be turned on and off, and so maybe they're captioned and we don't know it, but that's also a problem, because it should be very clear how to get to the captions, period. And what do y'all recommend for things like that when the budget, I think, is ridiculous? It's not a good argument to me.
Yeah, I think what I think a lot about is, particularly in marketing, is how do we make the business case for captioning with these organizations to kind of prove the value and the ROI that they'll get when choosing to caption videos. And there's so many kind of like value-driven reasons to caption that just aren't the type of thing that like the CEO of the company might think about when they think about compliance. So I like to focus more on these value props and the increase in business from demographics that they're ignoring, and the brand recall that they'll get, also the brand impact if they're using, say, automatic captions and it gets their name wrong. I mean, there's this classic JetBlue sent out a video and the auto captions called it Jeff Blue. And so I like to use that example a lot because you don't want to, that's going to have a huge impact on your brand and what people think of you, and think about how you are kind of professionally handling your brand in all scenarios. And then kind of like the hidden gem of captioning is SEO. And it's really hard to ignore that when you're working with organizations that want people to find their content. Google can't watch a video. So adding captions allows you to really rank for a much more diverse and robust keyword set and bring a lot more traffic to your website and increase the views that you're getting on, something that you're putting a lot of, monetary value into producing. The impact of not captioning it can be severe.
Yeah, and it's really sad to have watched as we're walking this pandemic emergency videos being sent out, and public hearings and people talking about the crisis and what you can do to protect yourself, and they're not captioning the videos. They don't have sign language interpreters, and it's just really hard to watch it when we are about to celebrate the Americans with Disabilities Act 30-year anniversary. So ADA 30 on July 26th. It's chilling that we still, once again, think it's a nice to have. And I think it was a good point you mentioned about the SEO, the search engine optimization. That's very, very, very important to corporations. It's important to all of us, but definitely from corporations. But I want to dig in a little bit more to captioning, because it sounds sometimes like what we're saying is somebody puts up one video and you need to caption it. And I want to talk a little bit more about what we're really talking about here, because there is also, one thing that we do is we record the Zoom and then we send it for captioning, and then we put the video out. And I had one of my customers that I actually sent to you guys, a global customer, that was saying, Debra, we want to have you on a webinar. And I said, okay, is it going to be captioned? Oh, not this time. We'll do it. And I said, nope, nope, nope. I will not be on if it is not captioned. And well, where do we go? And so I sent them to y'all. And now they're making a commitment to caption all of their videos. But let's talk a little bit more about live stream captioning versus do we have to do all of our videos? I know y'all get questions like that. This one client was saying, well, do we have to caption every single, we have thousands of videos. And I said to them, when we were talking overall, what was their accessibility plan? And I was reminding them, it's also about videos and audio. And I said, it really is okay to prioritize how you're going to do this. And if you do get in trouble, say with the court systems will look and see what your plan is. But tell us more about, this is a big topic. It's not just television captioning, or, it's a really, really big topic.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's a question that we get asked all the time. And I think, I will always caveat it with, you should always check with your organization's legal team, because this is a legal requirement. So choosing to not do something is something that we certainly cannot recommend. But the key is really about prioritization, like you said. Like, if someone isn't going to come and commit to doing everything immediately, then it's about showing that you have a plan for doing it and showing how you're choosing to implement that plan. So if you have a huge backlog of video, you're going to want to start with anything that you're publishing on an ongoing basis. And then you're going to want to start in the backlog with the videos that are the most viewed and the most consistently viewed, as well as the ones that are kind of evergreen and will be able to be reused in the future. So starting to look at chunking out the project and being able to prove that you have a plan and that you do care about this and that you do have a plan to implement a broader strategy is really, really critical. And that, in many cases, that can go a long way.
Yeah, and I know that we when I first got into the industry in 2001, and we were dealing with Section 508, and a lot of the government agencies were working with my past firm, Tech Access, and they would be they would get really overwhelmed by volumes, and we always said, have a plan. Now, from on, well, let's put a line in the sand. Every video you create moving forward must be captioned. So, but let's talk about the legacy and everything. And then, having some common sense with that. It's like, well, we have all these videos that, by the way, nobody's clicked on them in 25 years because okay, well, maybe that is not important, but you still have to have a plan, and the plan has to be something that the court systems are going to agree with, and the court systems want to see progress. But so totally agree with, which is why I sent this global customer to you, because some people also think, and I don't want to scare people, but some people think, well, how hard could it be just to caption it myself? And so what? I have a bunch of typos. I mean, you used a great example. Jeff Blue, didn't know that was their brand's name. Okay. Noted in my mind. No, I like Jeff Blue. But so, I think that's very interesting too, because there is so many moving parts, and how do you guide customers with understanding, once again, do I just go and learn how to be a captioner? I know somebody that I went through this ridiculous exercise years ago. I know somebody, they said they're a really fast typer, so they'd be a great captioner. And then they actually tried to caption one of my shows. They were like, oh, okay. So I was just wondering if you wouldn't mind, because it must be so easy. We can all just do it ourselves, right? What could go wrong with that, Lily?
Yeah, we get a lot of people saying they want to build out their own strategy to do it in house. And I think that there are a couple of things that are really important to remember there. Like captioning a video, first of all, just transcribing it takes 5 to 6 times real time. So if it's an hour video, then you're going to be sitting there for 6 hours, like typing out and editing that transcript. Then are you following the guidelines for quality requirements and proper grammar and punctuation and speaker identification? Do you know all of those kind of best practices for caption quality? And do you know how to time code a video appropriately so that then the captions will play at the right time with the video? And what it all comes back to for me is that time is money too. Like people who want to implement something in-house are still spending money on captioning because they're spending people's time. And they're spending time inefficiently too, because they're not a professional captioning company and they don't have the tools that we've built and patented to make it a much more efficient process. So I think that I usually urge people to do a little bit of a cost comparison of how much they pay these people hourly and how much time they're really spending on it, and whether that's actually the cheaper option.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And then we have, little one-off videos that we do. So I, once again, because of my work and I care so much about inclusion, I do little one-off videos, selfie videos and stuff. And I found a great little app, was $4 a year. And when I do a selfie video, I can actually caption it. I have to go back and check and make sure, and it's not perfect, but I have so many people say, thank you for caring about this. And so we're not really talking about that. There's definitely some do-it-yourself type things you can use for one-offs. But if you are a corporate brand, especially you are a station, you are a university, you schools, and you know, you really can't do. You have to be careful about thinking it's just so easy and we're going to just solve it by throwing it out crowdsourcing, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and there's so many rat holes when it comes to this that it's sort of shocking. And I think a lot of people sometimes in the accessibility field don't even realize all the rat holes that there are when it comes to captioning. And it's a very complicated part of the field.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think your point about like taking some selfie videos and captioning those, like that's a great example of when doing it yourself might be the right path forward, because there are definitely times when you can do it really quickly yourself if it's a, you know, a 30-second clip and you just want to get it up quickly, that's really different than, you know, a scalable corporate organization. And we have worked with larger organizations who use a hybrid, and they might have people in-house captioning some of their shorter videos or some videos that they don't have kind of an urgent turnaround on, and then they'll send us the more complicated videos, the longer videos, the ones that they need done quickly, and use that as a little bit of a hybrid model. And you know, I think that works in certain cases, and can be a really great path forward if you do want to tackle some things in-house.
I also see that some of the accessibility experts, and you know, we've got less than we used to have, but some of the accessibility experts, when they're talking about compliance of a website and accessibility of a website, I don't hear them talking about captioning at all. So it sometimes feels like our own industry forgets about captioning.
Yeah, it's really hard because you know, if we're talking about like WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, where there are 3 levels of compliance, A being the most attainable, captioning is a level A requirement. It is a baseline requirement for web accessibility, and almost everything references AA as the requirement. So there's really no excuse to kind of forget about captioning here. And I think part of it comes from the shift from video being on more of like a physical copy, like a DVD or VHS, to being web-based. And I think that that's been a really tough transition for people in thinking about video content, and thinking about video as a public accommodation when it's on a website. And this has been a, you know, a broader argument in digital accessibility for, you know, the last 10 years. But it is, you know, it's still something we hear is like, well, I thought the ADA applied to wheelchair ramps, right? And it does, but that's not it. And so getting that education around the sheer number of lawsuits and trends in this space that are pointing towards web accessibility being a definitive requirement, and captioning and video accessibility being a part of that, is hard.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind me keep digging into this topic, but I just want the audience to understand how complicated it is and why I do think they need a partner like 3Play Media. And I like what you said before, Lily, in that some people, some of your customers tried to, you know, they do a little combination. They have people on their team, you know, and that's smart to do that. But there is a time when it really does make it really does make a lot of business sense to have the right partner working with you. It really does. And it's not something, for example, that like we will help our clients get accessible and come up with a plan and blah blah blah, but we always will recommend that they go to somebody like 3Play Media specifically for the captioning, because we don't know that in the way y'all do. I also, when I was thinking about it, and what it was my show airs live on Facebook, and we were trying to get all the right SR key files, and well, anyway, and I'm a small business that struggles like everybody else with cash flow issues. We're doing a lot better now, but at the time we really were. So we were trying really hard to be accessible, and we were seeing people that were saying, well, I'm a court reporter and I can do this and I have this, and it's, or fast typist, which I did, but I think there's so much to this topic, including now, once again, all right, what are my obligations now that everything's gone virtual? I have training, I have webinars, I have special meetings, you know, all of that, like what we're doing right now, which when this goes live will be captioned. So, you know, it seems like it's become even more critical during the pandemic than it was before.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we're definitely seeing a lot of people coming to us for the first time, kind of wondering what to do. And I think, you know, you mentioned it's complicated. That's a huge part of it. But like the real value of going with a vendor is that you don't have to worry about it. Like you don't have to learn all of these very complicated technical specs. You don't have to build different caption formats. You don't have to worry about uploading different formats to different platforms and how that works. you just send it off, right? And then we can integrate with all of your platforms and post back directly, so you don't even have to download a file. Or, you know, then the pandemic hits and you have to worry about live captioning. You can just get it all in one place. Or you have a blind student or a blind employee and you need audio description, you can just do it all in one place, and you don't have to learn all of these kind of complicated and really niche um, things that there's not a ton of info out there on, to do it yourself. And I think that it's just such a time saver to go with a partner, that makes that, you know, this is our job, and it's our job to be an expert in it, so you don't have to
Yeah.
be.
Right, I agree. And I think, and then you think of, like you said, the nuances and everything. And um, what is y'all would know this, but what, what's acceptable with error rates? I've watched sometimes with great amusement, when there's a really bad captioner on television, and you're like, what? They're leaving out sentences, they're misspelling words, and I'm hearing it and reading it, and they're really two different topics. Uh, and you don't see that a lot on television, but you do see it more and more. And then, of course, I'm finding that I'm watching more and more international films, and it's very Netflix. I don't know what's going on with Netflix. They should be working with you guys, because they dub the movies, which I get and I appreciate that, but the dubbing and the captioning don't match. And so it confuses my ADHD brain watching those movies. And I appreciate that they're trying to do it, and then I think, if I'm a person that's deaf or really relying on these captioning to really get the content, I feel very bad for those people. And that's a lot of people too. We're not talking a few people. We're talking about a lot of people have hearing loss and are deaf.
Yeah, and then kind of beyond the deaf population, the number of people that are relying on captions when they don't have the sound on, it's about creating an equal experience, right? And like, we can argue numbers on quality percentage rates, like, all until the cows come home. Like, that is a constant conversation that we have with people coming to us, but you really just need to sit back and look at it objectively, and think about whether this creates an equal experience and whether you can understand what's going on, particularly if you turn the sound off and you just read the captions. Like, what is that story telling you? Is that story telling you that this is good enough, and that you can understand everything that's going on? Or is that story telling you that you're confused? Because for the most part, if it's not accurate, then it's going to be telling you you're confused.
Right.
And it can also really be misrepresentative. I mean, you know, Jeff Blue versus JetBlue, like, we all know the name JetBlue, so it's a little bit easier to identify that. But with accuracy rates, one thing that's really hard to measure is relevance of the words that are missed. So some of the words that are most commonly miscaptioned, by either speech recognition or kind of a low quality vendor, are key like understanding words, like can versus can't. It completely changes the meaning of the sentence, and can lead to like massive learning problems, and extreme disconnects when someone is reading something as literally the opposite of what it means. And those really key relevant understanding words are the ones that are most often missed, because, you know, even sometimes in conversation you might say, did you say can or can't? And that makes a huge difference. So just beyond kind of reading through a transcript, it's about understanding that those key kind of critical understanding terms are also a part of the equation, and that's really hard to measure.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And it's so easy to make that mistake. I did it I was sending a really important email, and I realized that I had made that mistake. I can't remember which way it was, but I was saying can when I meant can't. And I was like, ooh, and I corrected it, but it definitely was going to send the wrong message. But I also think it's funny because I work with gigantic brands, and they're like they're so critical about their logo and how it looks and the color you use. And we work so hard in marketing, use the right language and to get it just right and get the right message. and then we don't give a crap about the captioning, and it you miss all those nuances that your marketing people work so hard to get for you.
Yeah.
So it's like I think that's what it's so it definitely can impact your brand, which I think we don't want.
Totally. And one of the first recommendations I have is, oh, have you watched any of your videos with the YouTube auto captions on? Because that's what people are seeing, and that's usually kind of an eye opener for people.
Yeah, I bet it is. But I know we could talk forever. But Lily, I want you to tell the audience how they can find out more about your work, how they can follow you on social media, how they can contact you. But, and, a little bit, if you want to tell us just a little bit more about 3Play Media, where you are and who I mean, do you only work in the United States? Do you offer services outside the US? Things like that, if you don't mind.
Of
Commercial time, but I do want people to know how to find you.
I appreciate that. So 3Play Media, you can find us at www.3playmedia.com, three the number. And we work globally. So our office is all based in the US, but we do captioning in multiple languages, and we also do translation. So we work with a lot of organizations internationally in addition to the US. And yeah, we provide kind of a multitude of services. We're really looking at being a true video accessibility partner, so you don't have to go to multiple places to find all of the services you need. So we do closed captioning, transcription, subtitling and translation, audio description, interactive transcript tools, and live auto captioning. So any of those services you can find all under one umbrella with us, and you can find us at 3Play Media pretty much everywhere. And you can always feel free to reach out to the company at info@3Play Media or to me at Lily@3Play Media.
And when you talk about the different languages, because I know you also have global clients, and the client I just sent to you, they're in 90 countries. So, what are some of the other languages? Obviously, English, but what are some of the languages that you work with?
Yeah, so we work with over 50 different languages. It's pretty rare that we come up against a language that we don't do. And globalization is really a huge benefit of captioning, because once you have the captions in the source language, then you can translate that into all of these other languages and really become relevant in a lot more locations.
Do you ever find that your customers, they'll create the captions in English, but then they're like, well, there might be a benefit to also creating in other languages?
Yeah, so that definitely happens. A lot of times people will just translate the caption file and create multilingual subtitles. But we also will often see, particularly with Spanish, sometimes either videos that have both English and Spanish in them, or two versions of the video.
Yeah. And I just wanted to I definitely wanted to highlight 3Play Media because I love the work they're doing and have for a long time. And obviously, I didn't realize literally was the reason why they have such amazing training and content out there, free webinars. And I was really blessed to be on one of their webinars. But you really definitely want to check out 3Play Media. They're an amazing company. It's all about quality to them. It's all about quality. They know the community, they're part of the community, they're very committed to this. And yeah, you might be able to go and find it cheaper other places, but if you truly want a partner that understands global business, national business, and other really big, and I know they work with small companies as well, but to me, they're the best. They're the best. And so, Lily, thank you very much for being on the show today. I appreciate so much the work that y'all do. And I want you to continue to thrive because we need you. We need your work in this space for sure.
Debra, and the feeling is certainly mutual, and we're always so lucky to experience all of the incredible work that you put out too. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Lily. So, all right, so I'm going to let Lily go, but 3playmedia.com. So it's number 3mediaplay.com. So thank you. And also check them out on SlideShare. They're always sharing these wonderful presentations and their training and their free webinars. So it's an amazing, amazing group. And I really applaud you, Lily and Josh, and everybody on your team. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much. Thanks.